Okay, today we're going to talk about solving a quadratic equation. Please make sure you take out a sheet of loose leaf paper if you chose not to print out these notes. We will be using these skills and applying them to different questions that deal with angles and angle measurements. So this is the basic skill that we need so that we can complete more complicated math problems involving angles. So to solve a quadratic equation, the first thing we're going to do is make sure the equation is equal to 0. If it is not, we're going to use addition and subtraction to get it in standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c, which equals 0. Then we're going to factor the equation and set each factor equal to 0. Some of your teachers might have called that a T-chart in the past, because we are then going to solve each equation. So a quick review. If I wanted to look at this first equation, it's equal to 0. So if I want to factor this, I notice that this is the difference of two squares. So that factors to x plus 9 and x minus 9, because x is a perfect square and so is 81. To solve, I'm going to T-chart it, and I'm going to write x plus 9 equals 0. I'm going to solve. So I get x equals negative 9. And over here, when I solve this one, I get x equals positive 9. So my answers are negative 9 and positive 9. If I look at the second one, this is not equal to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 100 from each side because I want it equal to 0. Now if I look at this, again, in my mind, I know I can take the square root of x squared. I know I can take the square root of 100. So this is also factoring by the difference of two perfect squares. So this factors to x plus 10 and x minus 10. I'm then going to T-chart. And when I T-chart, I set each factor equal to 0. And when I solve, here I get x equals negative 10. And here, when I add, I'm going to get that x is equal to positive 10. So I get two answers. If I look at this example, again, it is not equal to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is move my 8x over. I'm going to put it after the x squared because I always want it to be the x squared, then the x, then any numbers if there are any. Now, if I go to factor this, the first thing I notice is both of these terms have an x. So this is a greatest common factor. So I can take an x out of each term, and I'm left with x times x minus 8. When I go to T-chart this, on the left, I get x equals 0. There's nothing to solve. On the right, x minus 8 equals 0. I'm going to add 8 to each side, and I get x equals 8. For the second one, again, if I look at it, the equation is not equal to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 5x to both sides. Now I have x squared plus 5x equals 0. Again, I notice that both of those terms have an x, so it is also a greatest common factor. So if I factor out the greatest common factor, I'm left with x plus 5. If I T-chart it or set each factor equal to 0 and solve each of them, I am going to end up with x equals 0 and x equals negative 5. The most common type of factoring is this type here. So again, the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that my equation is equal to 0. So I'm going to add 7, and notice I'm putting it at the end of the equation because we always write our equations in decreasing order, meaning x squared, x, plain number. Now if I want to factor this trinomial, hopefully you remember this is the AM method. What adds to 8 and multiplies to 7. Some kids like to write the factors off to the side. 1 times 7 is 7. Actually, those add to 8. So my factors are x plus 1 and x plus 7. If I T-chart it, Here, x plus 1 equals 0. When I solve, I get x equals -1. Here, x plus 7 equals 0, and when I solve, I get x is -7. So I have two answers. Moving along. Again, the first thing I notice, my equation is not equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 7x. Notice I put it in the middle because I do want my equation in decreasing order. Now again, I'm doing the AM method. If you need, list your factors of 12 off to the side. 1 times 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 12, but when I add them, I get -7. So that's 13, that's 8. These give me +7, but if I make both of them negative, if I multiply them, I get positive 12. If I add them, I get -7. So my factors are x minus 3 and x minus 4. Then we t-chart. X minus 3 equals 0. When I solve, I get x equals 3. Over here, x minus 4 equals 0. When I solve, I get x equals 4. So my answers are 3 and 4. Last couple of examples. Again, the first thing I'm going to do here is move this x over because I do want my equation equal to 0. Some kids find it easier here to put a 1 there. Again, this is factoring by the AM method. I'm looking for two numbers that add to -1 and multiply to -20. Some kids find it helpful to put that number off to the side and list the factors, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Since this is negative, one of these has to be negative. And when I go to add, that's 19, that's 8. This last one gives me +1. I want -1, so I'm going to switch the signs. 4 minus 5 is -1. So x plus 4 and x minus 5 are my factors. I'm then going to t-chart it. So I get x plus 4 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. If I solve each of them, I get x equals -4 here. And on this side, I'm going to get x equals 5. Last question. Again, the first thing I'm going to do is move over the 2 because I want my equation equal to 0. Again, I'm looking for two numbers that add to -3 and multiply to 2. If I list my factors of 2 off to the side, it's just 1 and 2. If I make them both negative, when I multiply, I'll get positive. When I add, I'll get -3. So my factors are x minus 1 and x minus 2. I'm going to t-chart it, which means I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. Here I get x is 1, and here I'm going to get x equals 2. Again, we're not going to specifically just factor. We're going to apply these skills to solving questions that deal with different angles. You need to understand how to factor and solve an equation. Any questions, please either email me or write them down and ask me next time you see me in class.